Okay, so we're now going to page 20, and we're starting with the second Ois base, the second chapter of this mimer. So from everything we said and everything we learned, the conclusion is to really summarize it in very short words, is that Cyrus, which is excessive symptom, extra, is a good thing when you're dealing with something that's very high. For example, the Or itself, which is bleak, which is infinite, not only the fact that the light goes through this excessive symptom is not a negative thing. On the contrary, it's absolutely necessary. On the other hand, when you have something like Cyrus in a place which is already measured and limited and contained, and it's gone through the process of symptom, and then you add this excessive symptom, that could lead to negativity. And he gave a number of examples, and I think anyone could think of any example because this is a general principle that applies to everything and anything. That there's something, anything you could think of, I'm talking in abstract language, but anything you can think of that is a powerful force. In fact, it's so powerful that you have to sort of reduce the energy so you can handle it, whether it's a person, whether it's an object, whether it's a machine. And that's a positive thing. You're reducing the energy so that enables us to use it. But then when you take something that doesn't have very powerful energy and you slow it down and you reduce the energy, it's a negative. And that's really what the main thing here is all about. But now he's going to apply this, like I said, to our avodah on a practical level. So on the bottom of page, I said page 20, we're working with the numbers on top of the page 135, the bottom of the page, 135. To extrapolate from one concept to another, taking the principle as it applies to Sfiros and to hair and to Nazir and Metzora, and now apply it to something else. We can understand how a person should approach and what their conduct should be in their business affairs. We use it al pasuk v'gilcha es roisha. It's based on a verse where it says, and she shall shave her hair, which is talking about a woman who was held captive. It's a different subject, and it's something which is dealing with something that is related to wartime, but there's an explanation that it means the spiritual counterpart or the self-control required for the proper balance in the way a person should control themselves and conduct themselves in their business affairs. What does that mean? We're talking about excess energy, which is external forces derive nurture. Practically speaking, what are the external forces? What's the excess energy? And how do they derive this when I'm doing my business affairs? And he goes on, this means this means when a person invests in his business affairs much more to the extent that his mind is troubled and his heart is troubled in a way that he can't concentrate on things that he needs to concentrate. Page 137, this effort is unnecessary. In other words, there's one way of doing business. When you do business, you have to put your head into what you're doing. Otherwise, you will not succeed. You'll make mistakes. You'll do the wrong thing. You'll forget to do what you need to do. So you have to think about it and you have to put your mind to it. Can't be just haphazard. On the other hand, there's a limit to how much I should invest myself in my business. When a person invests himself more than they should, it'll lead to negative results. What is more than you should? How do you measure that? And what are the negative results? And why is it negative? Why is it limited? The explanation is, in Kislev it says, B'chol asher tasa. There's a pasuk where it says that Hashem will bless you in everything that you will do. Let's look up the pasuk to see inside where it is. It's on page 70 in the booklet in the back. It's a pasuk in Chumash, Parshas Dvarim, chapter 15, pasuk 18. And it says, and Hashem will bless you in everything that you will do. What is the implication? So the Medrash says that once it says Hashem will bless you, I would think, so therefore I don't have to do anything. I should just daven, ask Hashem to help me, and He will give me the blessing. So therefore the pasuk adds, no, b'chol asher tasa, you need to do, and I will bless your activities that they will be successful. Yesh lahavin, we need to understand lama omar asher tasa. Why does the Torah add the words in all that you do? Lama leila adam lased b'masa matni. Why does a person have to involve himself in his business affairs in the first place? And then Hashem will bless his efforts, and this will bring them sustenance. Again, if you ask this question to anybody outside of the Torah world or the Chassidic world, they would say, what are you talking about? What do you mean that? Why do we have to do business? How do you expect to make money without doing business? Based on the fact that we believe that everything is from Hashem, it says, means a person could set up the most amazing, brilliant, genius structure in business, but if Hashem doesn't want him to have the bracha, it won't bring any income. And there are people who are shlamazolim. They don't even know what they're doing, and they do things in a really clumsy way, and they're making millions of dollars. Why? Because it's really up to Hashem. So the question is, why did Hashem set up, being that Hashem wants us to believe in Him and to trust in Him and to realize that everything is coming from Him, so why did He, what is wrong with sitting back and saying, Hashem, I trust in you, I'm going to say Tillim, I'm going to daven, I'm going to learn, and you'll find a way to get me my sustenance. I'll leave it up to Him. He's very resourceful. Hashem, He'll think of something, He'll know what to do. Of course, the reason is because it says it, no, you have to do. But that itself is a question, why? Why did Hashem set it up in such a way that we have to do all the things in the natural order? It says that a person's sustenance is already written down and sealed, not just written, but sealed on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. As our sages say, that the sustenance of the livelihood of a person is designated during the time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In other words, Rosh Hashanah things are written down. Yom Kippur, that's when it's sealed. In other words, on Rosh Hashanah, when Hashem decides that a person will have a year of success in his business, things are still pending until Yom Kippur. 10 days later, Yom Kippur, Hashem seals that decree, so to speak. And the same with, God forbid, the opposite. So therefore, the Gemara says, when is the time that Hashem designates to each person how much parnasa they'll have, how much sustenance they'll have between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? It starts on Rosh Hashanah, and the culmination is on Yom Kippur. That's when it's complete and sealed. So, Hashem Kitzuvim, being that it's already designated, even if he won't engage in his business activities, he'll have the parnasa. Because if Hashem allotted this to him, if Hashem designated on Rosh Hashanah rule that he will get X amount of money for the year, why isn't that enough? Page 136. Is it chas v'sholem possible that Hashem should say something, He's going to do something and not do it? So bavada, if that's the case, certainly, even if he will not engage in the business, lo yarba ala kitzvah. By the way, it doesn't just mean business, it means anything for parnasa, working for someone, being an employee, an employer, doing something that generates income. So why does a person need all this trouble that happens when you go to work. A lot of things, a lot of challenges, a lot of agmas nefesh, things that are painful, and there's a lot of ups and downs in business. What do you need all this for? Why can't I just trust in Hashem, and I'll have what I deserve? You and Behegdim, so we'll understand this by first prefacing Hashem Razal, a different statement of our sages. Adam nidim b'chol yom, that a person is judged every day. The question is a similar question, but from a different angle. Being that a person's sustenance is already designated, and there's a ruling, and it's sealed on Yom Kippur, so why is he judged again every day? It's already set up. Hashem already said, this year you will be earning X amount of money. Why is a person judged every day again? Page 139. Another question that comes as a result of this. Why do we daven every day in Shemona Esrei and we ask for different blessings? Hashem, please heal somebody sick. We're asking for bracha for healing. And we're asking for a year that would be successful, would be a good crop in the field. What is the purpose of these requests? Everything was already designated Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, not only sustenance, everything, health, and all the things that are our needs, it's all set up on Yom Kippur, on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. So if it's all set up, what's the purpose in praying? You're wasting your time. It's already been decided how things are going to be. And of course, if really every day matters, then what's the point in making that general designation on Rosh Hashanah? If anyway, you have to pray every single day again. We find it interesting in the Zohar. There was someone, one of the sages that are mentioned in the Zohar, his name was Rabbi Hamnuna Saba. Rabbi Hamnuna the elder. He was a very great sage. He would daven every single day for his food and his sustenance. He wouldn't eat until he prayed. He would say, first I have to get the food from the king, and then I'll pray. In other words, he's sitting in his house, there's a kitchen, there's a stove, his wife is cooking, prepared the food, and he says, first I have to daven and ask Hashem that he should give me the food, and then I can eat it. But it's already there. So obviously he's saying it's not there until I daven to Hashem. Does that play? On the surface, this is sort of something that's to wonder about. What's the purpose in doing that if it already has the food? And besides the fact that it's already on his table and in his house, he already davened for it, and Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Hashem already designated that he will be having such and such, there's such an amount of sustenance throughout the year. So to explain this, let's understand it's based on the concept of the fact that Yom Kippur is a time where the blessing of Hashem for the new year is sealed. We know Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur comes around, we give a bracha. And the bracha depends when. When you give someone a bracha before Rosh Hashanah, you say you should have a ksiva v'chasima teva. It should be written up and sealed for a good year. When it's after Rosh Hashanah, then you say it should be sealed for a good year, because it was already written on Rosh Hashanah. And then Yom Kippur, things are sealed. Okay, in the Gashmistic world, we know the difference. And that's probably the explanation on a superficial level. When you write something, it's still not final. It's not conclusive. And when you seal it, you put a seal on it, it means done. This is it. There's no going back. So in a sense, Rosh Hashanah, everything is still pending, even after Rosh Hashanah. It's a judgment that's still pending. And depending how much tshuva I'll do between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And then Yom Kippur, depending how I act in those 10 days, then Hashem seals it. That's a simple meaning. And that's why in davening we say v'chosmeinu. There's certain parts of davening that during the time of Rosh Hashanah we say, Hashem, write us up for a good year. And the word is changed on Yom Kippur, and especially at the end of Yom Kippur, we say, seal us for a good year. Page 138, Pirush Harizal, the Harizal says, what does it mean, the sealing, when Hashem seals it? Sham shachas heigvuras the atik b'malchus. He says words which are just pure Kabbalah, and that is that this is drawing down the 5 attributes of Gvura, of Atik in Malchus. And the Maimon is going to explain that in simpler language. And we had this already before, and I'm just going to mention it again just to sort of remind you, because it is something that comes up often. It sounds like it's a pure Kabbalah word, Hey Gvuras. Does anyone remember we once spoke about this? Why did we say there are 5 Gvuras? What? So we explained that 5 Gvuras means that Gvura is to take something and break it up into parts, to organize it, to put it into categories. In other words, Chesed, there are not going into differences. Gvura, it doesn't mean strength or might or force or aggressiveness. It could be applied to that, but that's not the definition of Gvura. Gvura means the idea of limiting things, giving things a limit, defining things, giving it a form. And that basically means to break things up into details. So generally speaking, according to Kabbalah, there are 5 things, 5 categories of breaking things up into detail. And these 5, they sort of branch out into many more. So one of the places where we see this in this physical world, I mentioned last time, were the fingers. That a person has 5 fingers. The 5 fingers enable us to make infinite kinds of movements. If a person wouldn't have 5 fingers, just a hand, then they could move it, but they couldn't make these different letters of A, B, C, all the different letters, different forms and shapes, and do what an artist does. It's impossible. You'd make general movements, but you couldn't make all these little intricate movements. So the fact that there are infinite details of movements that I can make is a result of the 5 fingers, which means the 5 fingers breaks down the movement in different categories. And that's general. And then in detail, there's infinite categories. So we have 5 fingers on the right hand, we have 5 fingers on the left hand. That's one example. The other example, as we said, with the voice. The letters of the alphabets, even they all come from the mouth, and they all come from our voice. But basically, they're broken down by going through 5 gateways. Remember, the 5 gateways are the teeth, the tongue, the palate, the throat, and the lips. So there's certain letters that come about by putting my lips together. So it's a bays or mem. Certain letters come by the voice going through the tongue, which is lamed, nun. And then there are words that come through the throat, through the palate, and through the teeth, like tzaddik, zayin, and so on. So again, we have something, there's a voice. The voice is general, and then it's broken down to details, and the details are broken down through the 5 gates, the parts of the mouth. Hey, Mitzvah. And then we said the same as with Hashem in the Spheros, that everything is created from Hashem's name, Yud K, Vav K, but ultimately it comes from the last letter of Hashem's name. And what is that letter? Hey. What's the gematria of Hey? 5. Or another thing we spoke about were the 5 letters in the Aleph base. There are 5 letters that are called final letters. They put an end to a letter. And those letters are 5. The Mem, the Nun, Pei, the Tzaddik, and the, who did I miss out? Chav. So in Atik, which is a high level on top of all the way up there in Keser, there are 5 Gevuras. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about sealing. So it's a very Kabbalistic term. And he's going to explain this in a language that we can understand. The Pirish Kachu. Muda Zois, it's known, Shabarosh Hashanah, Nimshech Chayis Kloli, Me'en Sabar Hu Lahachis Ha'ilimis Hashanah Zu. On Rosh Hashanah, the Eibishter draws down general vitality, life, from Ein Sof, from Hashem's infinite light, that's going to give light to the whole entire world and all the worlds for the new coming year. Shekol ha'or mishan ha'avra, all the light that was expressed by Hashem in the previous year, mistalik l'sharshay be'erev Rosh Hashanah. It returns to its source on the day before Rosh Hashanah, the last day of the year. Sha'chelish miskasabay, and that's the day that the moon becomes hidden. The moon, which represents the sphere of Malchus, it becomes hidden, means the light of Hashem becomes hidden. And the analogy to that would be like a person who goes to sleep. When they go to sleep, all the energy that they exerted throughout the day is sort of returns back to its source, to the neshama. And in the morning, I wake up with new energy. And that's, in a sense, what happens on every Rosh Hashanah. That all the energy that Hashem exerted from the beginning of the year, all the 365 or 55 days of the year, it all, on Erev Rosh Hashanah, it all goes back to its source. It becomes withdrawn back to Hashem. And then the new year, Hashem brings out new light. It's not a recycling. It's new light, something even more than what was there before for the new year. And that's when we see that the moon on Rosh Hashanah, that's when it becomes hidden. And the same day, you start seeing a speck of light, it starts coming back. And through our sounding of the shofar and the special designated prayers that we say on Rosh Hashanah, Hi b'chinas malchus, mokar debiya. No, nimshach chodosh. This brings down a new light. Lahoyer la'aretz al-yena, and that new light shines in this world. Hi b'chinas malchus, mokar debiya. So the new light is coming from malchus, and that's the sphera, which is the source of all the worlds. Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. So first of all, that new light shines to the spiritual worlds, and then it shines also to us, Ladorim Allah, to all those that are dwelling in these worlds, the higher worlds and the lower worlds. So basically, Hashem's light is infinite light, and the light of Chokhmah, the highest of the sphere, that light shines in Malchus, the lowest of the 10 spheres, and from there it shines into all the worlds. Kameshakasim, as it says, the Chokhmah Yosad Oretz. Hashem established the earth with wisdom. That's the simple meaning. But the deeper meaning is that there's a connection between Oretz, which is Malchus. Generally speaking, when you talk about earth and heaven, heaven is Zah, the 6 midos, and earth is Malchus. Heaven is usually represents masculine, and Malchus represents feminine. And in fact, just like the process of childbirth is a process where there is a flow from masculine to feminine, and then a baby is born, here there's a flow from Shemayim, the rain that comes to the earth, and that causes new trees and plants and vegetables and fruit to grow from the earth, like birth. So Shemayim and Aretz in Kabbalah is Zah and Malchus, masculine and feminine, the 6 midos and the midah attribute of Malchus. So when you look at these words, B'chokhmah Yosad Eretz, which means Eretz, which is the 10th sphere, but it's really rooted in Chokhmah and Hashem's wisdom, which is the highest of the 10 spheres. And when does this happen? When does it shine? On Rosh Hashanah. Okay. What? Yeah. As it's known for those who know Kabbalah, Rosh Hashanah and Nesira. In Kabbalah, this is called Nesira, and basically this is sort of a reoccurrence of what happened the first Rosh Hashanah. The first Rosh Hashanah, what happened? Hashem put Adam Rishon to sleep. And what happened after he put him to sleep? On Rosh Hashanah, Hashem put Adam Harishon to sleep.
Oh, he made Kabbalah.
And then Chava came. In other words, he didn't just put him to sleep and then he woke up again, the same person as he was before. But as a result of him being put to sleep, something new came. And who was the new? Was Chava. And not only was she a new person, but now that Chava was there, that enabled them to bring new people into the world to infinity. There could be generation after generation as a result of that. So in a sense, what happened to Adam Rishon physically down here was a reflection of what was going on with the spheres up there. That the light of Malchus, just like Adam went to sleep, means the light, the energy returns to its source, and then new energy comes, and this repeats itself every single year in Rosh Hashanah. That's called Nasira.
Rabbi, so is it just for the year or for the month as well? It's not
it's for the whole year. It's for the whole year, and he's going to explain how does it affect every month and every day. Page 140. That which is drawn down on Rosh Hashanah is b'chinas chayes kloli. It's general chayes. Shenimshich erin sabaruchu b'chinas malchus. It's very general. It's all the life flow that's going to affect this whole world for the next 55 days of the year. She is chalak the prati, but in order for this chayes to be broken down into details, which means this chayes has to shine to everything in creation differently. This light has to shine to every created being according to its level, both elyonim and tachtenim. The light that shines to angels is different than the light that shines to humans. The light that shines to humans is different than the light that shines to animals, to plants, to inanimate. And in each species, there's hundreds and thousands of different details. So the light of Hashem is delivered to each place accordingly. So on Rosh Hashanah, it's general. And then from there, it gets delivered, so to speak, to each individual creation. Zehu inyan ha'chaysim. This is the seal. In other words, when the general light gets broken down and delivered to each individual in its specific way, that's what we mean by the seal. I mean, just to think of a gashmidik mushal, we know that we walk over to a sink and we turn on the faucet and water comes out. So of course, children that grew up in this world, they think that's what happens. You turn on a faucet and something about this piece of metal produces water. But the truth is, there's a very deep mystical secret, and that is there's a reservoir somewhere, which there's a lot of water there, or there's a river, and I think New York gets its water from the Delaware River. How does the water get from there to here? It's a whole process. The water gets delivered under the ground. It goes in these huge conduits, huge, probably as bigger than this room, and the water flows. But there's water that's delivered to, let's say, New York. I don't know exactly how this works, but something along these lines. It gets delivered to New York. Okay, now, could I take the water from that conduit into my kitchen? No, I'll be washed away with the water, with the kitchen, with everything else. So that water, some of it, then there's another pipe that takes some of it to, let's say, Brooklyn, some of it to Queens, another thing goes to Manhattan, another thing goes to a different borough, and it gets divided. It's still not what can go into my house. So then in Brooklyn itself, it goes down different neighborhoods, and then there are different pipes that take it down different streets. Finally, there's a pipe that runs through the middle of the street here. That's for Eastern Parkway. And then there's a pipe from there that goes to this particular house. And each pipe gets smaller than the one before because it's more specific. And the one that goes into this house doesn't go straight into my kitchen either. It goes into the basement. That's the main. And from there are smaller pipes. One goes to the first floor, the second floor, the third floor, to the bathroom, to the shower, to the sink, to the kitchen. And eventually I turn on the faucet and I get my water. So that means first it comes in a very general way, then has to be broken down to all the details. Now with water, it really doesn't matter because the water doesn't change in any way. The water is the same water. It just changes in the sense that it's sort of streamlined to this block, to this house, to this floor, and so on. Spiritually, it's actually a different energy because there's different energy that gives life to humans, to animals, to one person. If there are 8 billion people in the world, there's 8 billion different energies. And if there are many more billions animals and flies and insects and trees and plants. Every single thing has to have its personal life law that is designed to give life to this creation. So on Rosh Hashanah, it's a general life, and then it has to be broken down to details. When it comes to be broken down to details, that's the process called chasima. It's sealed. Page 143. Shemekabeles, hey Gvura. This sealing receives its influence, according to Kabbalah, from this place which is called the five Gvuras. Shemeteva HaGvura Lipfarer. The basis of Gvura, the nature of Gvura is that it breaks things up into details. Meshkosov, as it says, Ata fararta ba'os chayam. You, with your strength, you shattered the sea, which is alluding to the sea that was split when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. So this is the Gevura, breaking things up into details. And these five attributes of Gevura, they make the division between one and the other. That this light of Hashem, which is Chayes Kloli, which is a general life energy, Hanimshuk b'Malchus, and it flows to Malchus. But from there, Mischalek leprotios mini hamshachas achayes. It gets broken up and divided into details and details of details to the point that it's applied and provided to each creation according to what it needs. And for people, what we get and how much we get and what kind of bracha we get all depends on the avodah that we did in the previous year. Which means the Torah, the mitzvahs, the good things get weighed against the negative things, and based on that, Hashem designates what I'll be getting this new year. This is similar to what it says about the Hey Gvuras, which they also break up Hevel Alev, the breath that comes from the heart, and when a person speaks, that's the source of the voice. It gets broken down to 22 letters. And the 22 letters, these are the letters with which Hashem created the whole universe. He's showing us and giving us an example where we see that the 5 gets broken up to 22, and the 22 gets broken up into millions and billions of details. How's that? We know that Hashem created the world with words. We brought this up before. So Hashem said, let there be light, let there be heaven, let there be earth. Okay, but where did everything else come from? If it's the words of Hashem that created everything, where does everything else get its life force from? There are no words in the Chumash where Hashem said, let there be a cat. It doesn't say anywhere in the Chumash, let there be a cat, let there be a mouse, let there be a rat, let there be a squirrel. And all the insects and all the animals, forget about everything else, just animals alone, it's infinite.
From the animal.
What?
The creatures.
But Hashem didn't spell it out. So the answer is like this. What it says in Tanya, there's a chapter 2 in Tanya, volume 2 in Tanya that explains that these words with which Hashem said, let the creatures be created, the letters of the words that they're rearranged in a certain order, ultimately you'll find in it, through the gematria and all the codes that are in words, every word, every name of every single creation in the world that's there. But it evolves from the words that are in the Torah. So for example, Hashem said a word, and the gematria of that word is 260, and then from there comes another word, which is also 260, and then comes another word, which has the same letters, but rearranged, and then comes another word. There's like so many systems of gematria that it's infinite, the amount of creation that could come out of just combining the 22 letters in different ways. So again, the 22 letters lead to millions and billions and trillions of words, which are the source of life for everything in creation. And the 22 letters come from the 5 parts of the mouth. So we see that 5 breaks things up to 22. 22 brings things up into millions and billions of details. The same thing with Rosh Hashanah. The light of Hashem is very general. Then the Hey Gvuras break it up into 5 directions. And from there it gets broken down to details and details and details, that every single creation of the world has a pipeline that gives it the life that it needs to get. And that's called sealing it. That's the sealing. I guess the reason is because that's breaking it up into detail. That's making the division. The tmuras from combination of the letters and from rearranging the letters. And there's, like I said, so many different codes of how one word could be hidden in another word. Each word contains many words in it, and then the new words contain other words in it because of the hidden codes. There's codes in the Torah. And therefore, it could be that Hashem said one sentence, and that can include in it hundreds and thousands and millions and billions of details. Nimshach shinui v'schalkas hachayis l'navroim commissions bar Hashem. Remember, I once told you that the first three words of the Torah is Bereshis, Bara, Elokim. And what does it spell? The last letter in each word, Emes. Aleph, Mem, Sov. Then there's something else which comes out of the first letter in each word. And sometimes there's a word that comes out of the third letter in each word. And then there's the numerical value of each word. And then there's so many different systems of Gematria. What? So Fei Tevot, Emet. Aleph, Mem, Tav. Kimasha mekablim haichsodim the atik zo etzem achayis kololi. So first, Hashem gives this life force to the world through the chesed. These are the five, just like with the fingers. There are 5 fingers on the right hand, chesed. There are 5 fingers on the left hand, that's gevura. So from the 5 on the right hand, that's the general life force that flows for the new year. Or chodesh, which comes from Ur and Sof. That's the chesed that's drawn down to give vitality to all the worlds. Like it says in the benching, Hazonas Olam Kulai, Hashem sustains the entire world with B'tuvay, B'chein, or B'chesed, with his goodness, with his grace, and his kindness. So it's Hashem's kindness, Chesed, which gives life to the world. But because it's a general life flow, it's not broken down to details. That comes from the left hand, from the 5 gevuras on the left hand is chalkus lepratim adei gevuras. So then every person gets what they need to get for the new year. So this person is designated that will have X amount of money. This person is designated that will have X amount of health. This person is designated with X amount of success. This person is designated that will have this and this particular blessing. And this is the way it goes for every person in the world. Everything we experience as individuals is all a result of what's been designated on Rosh Hashanah, and the life flow that's flowing to me personally, that's the source of whatever it is that I get. And we're talking about everything. I mean, when something happens that's out of the ordinary, you see clearly, it's Hashem. I have a nephew that moved up to Kingston, Pennsylvania. A few months after living there, he walked into a store, and suddenly there's a big commotion and a lot of noise, and I don't know what happened. Everybody's looking at him, there's cameras. Seemingly, they made this thing that the millionth person to walk into the door is going to get $100,000. So how did that happen? He didn't work for it. Didn't do anything. Obviously, it was designated in Shemayim on Rosh Hashanah that this person is going to get $100,000. And it was designated which day of the year it's going to happen, which hour of the day, and it was designated which way it's going to happen. You can get $100,000 in different ways. You can find it on the street. You can win it in a lottery. You could do a job and earn $100,000. So it was designated from Shemayim exactly to whom, when, how, all these details. This is not the general chayes. This is when the general gets broken down to details, that this will be delivered to so-and-so on this day, this hour, in this particular manner. And the same thing with everything that happens to us. Even a person that goes to work on a regular basis and at the end of the week gets a check and he cashes in, puts it into the bank, and he has what to buy food with, it's also from Shemayim. It's just being channeled in a different channel, but it's the same thing. It's been designated in heaven that you will be able to earn every week $1,000, $500, and it goes through that channel. To be continued. Okay, we'll stop here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. כן, אולי עכשיו נרדת ולשאול שיר על מה קבענו.
What a time to be alive. Wow. These tissues are Jewish. I know. I noticed that.